So what other options for reform does the government have, given the imperative to save money?
I don't know what other options they have other than to fund it properly. But what I can say is that we at the Law Society are actually putting forward our own proposals, and I'll go into those if you would like. We were well aware that this was on the agenda, and so over the last 18 months the Law Society has been conducting its own Access to Justice review. And I will stress that this is access to justice is a genuine concern about people who will not be able to fund themselves in legal actions if what we thought the government were going to do did take place. And this is the proposal that we know is coming forward. In the Law Society's Access to Justice review, the final report of which was published on exactly the same day as the Green Paper, we make a number of proposals. One is we're trying to actually say that you look at where the costs are coming into the Legal Aid Fund and actually take the cost from that particular area. So, for example, a levy on the Financial Services Authority, because so many of the very high cost cases, and they take up a great proportion of the Legal Aid Fund, are actually financial services cases. Now, there should be a levy on the members of that authority to actually pay for those sort of cases. The second idea that we've had is that there should be a tax on the alcohol industry. I mean, if you're a criminal lawyer, you know very well that 6 out of 10 cases that you see in the magistrate's court or the police station or whatever are alcohol fuelled. And I know there's a lot in the papers currently about how cheap alcohol is and there should be a minimum price and things like that. And there's also talk that there should be a levy to pay for policing. Well, if there's going to be a levy on the alcohol industry to pay for policing, it's only sensible that there's also a levy to pay for the defence costs as well. And we actually are pushing that. What I have said, though, a few moments ago, is that we are looking at to where the drivers of the costs of legal aid are. In a perfect world, in a perfect society, there would be no need for legal aid lawyers. Jack Straw in the last administration said so many times that we spend more per head on legal aid than anywhere else in the world. And he used that to say that this is a bad thing. Firstly, I think it's a good thing. The fact that we did have a bigger legal aid budget than anywhere else was something to be proud of. It showed that we have taken our idea of access to justice so seriously. But there's also something else as well. Because the drivers on legal aid are when there's matrimonial breakdowns, when there's difficulties with public authorities, when housing is not in the way that it should be under the Fair Home Standards, when there's clinical negligence problems, when there's problems in the street, whatever, it perhaps is an evidence of a broken Britain. And maybe the drivers behind legal aid are the fact that society has not been working as it should do. And the government should actually put its attention to that, rather than try and cut at the very end. If the government had a more holistic view and looked at what was driving all of this and tried to do something about that, then there wouldn't be need for legal aid, there wouldn't be need for legal aid lawyers. It's like looking at something through the wrong end of the telescope and getting the wrong answer.
Richard, the consultation closes on the 14th of February. What's the likely timetable from there?
There are a number of steps we can expect over the coming months following on from this Green Paper. The first is that the paper itself does say there will be a further consultation on price competitive tendering for crime, which will be issued in the spring. Now, this will be about the 4th consultation on this subject in the past 6 years, so it's difficult to know why they think they can get around all the problems that have stopped the previous attempts this time round, but we will look with great interest at the proposals when they come out. The next step, as far as the main bulk of the proposals is concerned, is that there will be legislation, and we understand that that's likely to be brought in the early summer and will be going through Parliament over the autumn and into the early part of 2012. During the course of this year, there will have to be a tendering process for family contracts. The current contracts are due to expire in November this year, and there will have to be something to replace them. This will, however, be an interim contract because the proposals in the Green Paper will not be ready to be implemented at the time that that renewal happens. We then expect to see the bulk of the changes come in either late 2011 or early 2012. Given the long history of timetables slipping, I would not be surprised if what actually happens is that there is a tendering process during 2012 for the changes to happen in 2013.
And finally, Andrew, what is the Law Society doing to shape the outcome of the changes, and what should the profession be doing now?
Well, as I've mentioned to you, there's the Access to Justice review. We're trying to make all members of the Law Society very well aware of what's going on here. We're trying to persuade them to put in responses, because government, yes, it's the quality of the responses, but it's also the quantity of the responses, which might make some changes. For example, to some of the areas which I think have taken out of scope. We're obviously lobbying Parliament, and people out there can actually lobby their own MPs, particularly those in marginal constituencies, and remind them that if they don't actually do something about this, then members of Parliament's constituency surgeries are going to be full up. I mean, the message that I would have at the end of the day is also this, is that the Law Society have tried to take the lead on access to justice over the last 18 months, 2 years. And a lot of the stuff that's come out from the Law Society has been on that basis. There's a genuine concern that access to justice in this country has been eroded. And I think there's a lot of people out there who do realise that the Law Society have taken lead on this. It was the reason why they took the action on the civil family tender last year. Access to justice, in my view, is the most fundamental of human rights. We talk about education. We talk about health, but we forget that access to justice is something that's a ground rock behind all of this. If you don't have access to justice, you can't have proper health services, you can't have your education. And maybe there needs a debate out there as to how important justice is in this country and how it's going to be eroded if these reforms go through.
On that note, we're going to have to leave it. Andrew Kaplan, Richard Miller, thank you both very much. Goodbye.